This is our review of the Dreame Z10 Pro, which is very similar to the L10 Pro, but it has an auto empty station. Dreame is part of the Xiaomi ecosystem, so there's a lot of similarities to Roborock and the Xiaomi robots. It has LiDAR navigation, which is very good, as you'd expect, and it also has object detection on the front. It has 4,000 pascals of suction and a 150-minute runtime with a 5,200 milliamp hour lithium-ion battery. They say that this can clean up to 250 square meters, but this is probably going to be on minimum mode without the mop attached, so kind of take it with a grain of salt. It does have recharge and resume, so it can come out, clean, then go and recharge, and then continue where it left off to finish the rest of the house. As I said, there's quite a lot of similarities to the L10 Pro. Physically, apart from the color, you won't see too many differences. If you lift up the hood though, you will find that it only has a 400ml dustbin, but this doesn't really matter too much because it does have the auto empty station. The mop is slightly different, but again, that's just to make room for the auto emptying slots on the bottom of the robot. If we take a look at the robot, on the bottom we'll see that once again it has a most common bristled roller brush. You'll see that the bristles here are alternating with the silicone one, which is slightly better on the hard floors. The bristle brushes do really well at picking up hair, particularly on carpet, because they get right into the carpet and they pull that hair out. As a result though, they normally get quite a lot of that hair tangled around the brush, so you'll find yourself continually having to clear it off. I found that both the L10 Pro and the Z10 Pro were significantly better than anything else that we've tested in this regard, with that detangling comb on the brush itself. As a result, I think that this could be the best pet hair performing robot vacuum on the market. That 4,000 pascals of suction does do a really good job as well, and it leaves a nice deeply cleaned line on the carpet, so you can see a visual difference even. It definitely gives me a sense that the floors are really quite clean after it has gone over it. On the back here, you'll see that there is a mop attachment which just clips on when you want to mop on the hard floors. There's a little water reservoir on the bottom that you can refill under the tap, and it has 150ml water capacity. It is just a static drag around mop, which means that it's not vibrating or oscillating while it's cleaning. So you'll find that it doesn't get rid of the real stubborn old stains, but it kind of just gets rid of those newer spills and dusts the floor while it goes. It's still better to have than not, but not really as effective as the vacuum. It's important to note that the Z10 Pro does not have carpet detect when the mop is attached. This means that it will attempt to mop on the carpet unless you've gone into the app and you've added no mop zones. This just means that when the mop is attached, the robot knows not to go into that area and try to clean. As always, it does have these drop sensors or cliff sensors, whatever you want to call them, which help the robot to detect falls that would be big enough to hurt it. So you don't need to worry about things like stairs as it won't fall down. The LiDAR sensor on the top under this turret here is a laser that's rotating constantly, taking 360-degree measurements of the room, so it always knows exactly where it is in relation to everything else. It has a quick mapping mode, which means that rather than having to clean the whole room while it creates its map, it'll simply drive into each room, take a scan, and then move on to the next one. It's super impressive and probably a lot better than some of the real premium ones on the market. Because the laser and the LiDAR on the top can't see things below the height of the robot, normally robot vacuums rely on the bump sensor to detect things on the floor. However, obviously certain things like shoelaces and cables or socks or whatever you might leave on the floor that isn't very big will fit underneath the bump sensor. They do tend to get tangled around the brush, which is a real common complaint for robot vacuum owners. On the front bumper here, you'll see that there's another array of sensors which are direct time of flight sensors, which is another light-based system for detecting things on the ground. We put that through some tests later on in the video, so keep watching to see how it did. It's also worth noting, of course, that the mop on this model cannot raise when it comes to carpet. This means that to clean on the carpet, you will need to unattach the mop. It's pretty easy to do so. There's just a couple of clips on the back and you pull it right off. The Z10 Pro obviously has the auto empty station, which is 4 liters. It requires a dust bag, and every time when the robot returns to base to charge itself, it will empty itself through these ports here into the base using a separate vacuum motor inside the base itself. This auto empty station is particularly handy for people with pets or dusty floors, or people like me that might forget to empty it before you clean it and then it goes out on its schedule and it's already full. The navigation is possibly actually the most important factor, and it is exceptionally good. It was smart in dividing up the rooms and methodical and really quite quick. Overall, it's as good as anything else that you'll come across on the market. On our cleaning test, the Z10 Pro did pretty well on all of them. You'll see that on the seeds on the hard floor, the side brush was probably the biggest factor because it was flicking the seeds around quite a lot. This, in the real world, is normally actually a good thing because it means that it is getting right into those corners and edges and getting the crumbs out. But when you put piles of seeds around, it looks a little bit ridiculous. That's because it's only done one pass, which is a bit unfair, isn't it? Because all the other ones did double passes. So on the first pass of the seeds on the hard floors, it got 16 of the 20 grams. You'll see that it did miss quite a bit though, but that's generally just because the side brush is flicking it away. To be consistent with our other tests, we're about to send it out for a second pass and we'll see how it goes after that. In our new testing area, it's a lot bigger, so it obviously has more room to flick those seeds. But after the 2 passes, it still did get 19 of the 20 grams of seed we laid down. When we tested the Fruit Loops on the hard floor, we still had the mop attached, and you'll see that it was getting Fruit Loops stuck underneath the mop at times, and that it was kind of lifting itself up. Despite this, it actually still did manage to get almost all of them, as you'll see, but it did impact that test a little bit, I do think. We decided to leave it as it is and show you that because in reality, on hard floor, you probably will have the mop attached, but you may or may not spill a whole box of Fruit Loops in one spot. We used a coffee paste to simulate muddy boot prints, and we also poured some grape juice down to test the mopping. It did about as good as you could expect for a drag around mop. It did fairly well on the sticky coffee paste, and it left a slight residue of the red grape juice. This can easily be solved with another pass, or you can put some floor cleaner down before you start. This test is really just to set your expectations so that you know what it will or won't do. So we're just doing our cleaning test on the carpet, and the zone here is actually accurate enough that we can split it in half and do both at the same time just by splitting the room in half. On the carpet, it gobbled up all of the seeds with ease. That 4,000 pascals of suction is really coming and shining through. On the Fruit Loops on carpet, however, it didn't do particularly well, and maybe the test is too hard. It looks like it's going off-roading and trying to drive over big rocks. The ones that it did get into the brush, it was crunching up and putting it into the dustbin, but it did miss quite a few, and potentially the object avoidance was coming into play as well. This is obviously something that's really unlikely for the robot to come across in the real world. Again, it's just about showing you what the capabilities and limitations of the robot really are. It's actually impressive that when it does go over the Fruit Loop, it will get it, but it may miss it as well. The object avoidance, when we tested it with cables and with the fake dog poop, it did absolutely perfect on the cables, about as good as I've ever seen. It goes right up close to them instead of leaving a big gap, and then it drives around it, circling it perfectly. Didn't even touch it once, it was absolutely perfect. However, on the dog poop, it ignored it and yeeted it across the room. So make sure that you clean up before it does a clean if that's the case in your house. As I mentioned earlier, the bristle brushes generally do excel at picking up the hair, and the suction is powerful as well. So yeah, the robot did really, really well. So super curious to see how much of that actually got it past the brush, into the bin, and then into here. So we'll give it a go. It did epic on the hair, as I kind of expected from my previous tests. So there's nothing in here, so we'll have to flip it over and see how much is on the brush. Otherwise it means it's emptied it, but I suspect it will be quite a lot tangled. Ooh, that is very impressive. Obviously you can see that a bit has got onto the wheel, but there's not much you can do about that really, but there's actually almost none tangled around the brush itself, and most of it got into there. And I have no idea why that might be, but that's very impressive. So I loaned these Dreame robots out to a friend that has some ragdoll cat hair that some of the more expensive robots on the market have failed on. And we found that it's done way, way, way better, and I've been a little bit confused why. And I was a little bit confused just then how it's managed to do quite so well on that hair test compared with literally anything else that we've tested. And it seems like these little ridges in here must do a very good job at self-cleaning that brush. So it means that it's continuing to clean and actually picking it up. And so almost all of it ended up in the auto empty station, which is a definite first for us. This is ridiculously remarkable. No other robot other than the iRobot series can do this that I've seen. This was the feature that really blew our minds, and it seems to be a function of the comb that combs the brush and pulls the hair off as it's continuing to clean. And I suspect it probably is about the best robot for cat and dog fur that you'll come across. I've done all of my testing using the Xiaomi app, as the Z10 Pro was not available in the New Zealand region of the app. This is the Xiaomi app, and as you can see, it looks fairly familiar compared with the other apps on the market. Because the robot's off the base at the moment, you have the option to send it back to dock, or we can start a clean. At the moment, it's set to clean the whole area all at once. If I go into room, I can select specific rooms and click clean, and it will just go and clean those specific rooms. Otherwise, I can select zone and just surround a specific area, and it will go and clean that up. That was particularly useful while we were filming our cleaning tests. We can also go and add no-go zones. A no-go zone is where the robot won't clean over that line and it will stay out of that area. We also have the no mop zones here, which is exactly the same concept as a no-go zone, but it only applies when the mop is attached. So when the mop is attached, it won't go into that purple zone, but as soon as I unclip it, it'll just act as if it's not there. In the cleaning settings here, you'll see that we have the option to change the cleaning mode. So at the moment it's set to vacuum and mop, but you can do a vacuum only or a mopping only. In the suction settings, we have 4 different options, from quiet up to turbo. And obviously on turbo mode, it's a lot louder, but it will do a much deeper clean. We also have the water flow rate. Like I said, there's a little pump inside the mop, so you can change that. So on high, it's better for deeper, more stubborn stains, whereas on light, it's just going to do a little maintenance sweep. You can also set how often it will cover each area during that cycle. So you can go up to 3 times, so it will do each area 3 times before it returns to base. You can also set up cleaning sequences where you can choose which order you want the room to be cleaned in. In the map management section, we have the option to add additional rooms. So this is useful if you've got multi-level houses. It can save additional floor plans that you can add no-go zones to for each level. The robot is smart enough to recognize if you carry it up the stairs and load the correct floor plan. There are some settings in the app for the auto emptier. At the moment, it's going to empty itself just once after each clean. But if you find that it's not emptying itself properly or it's struggling to empty, you can do it so that it'll do it 2 or 3 times after each clean. Up in the main settings section in the top right here, we have a whole horde of other settings. You can turn off the object avoidance, which can be useful if you find that it's avoiding things you don't want it to do. Resume cleaning is when it runs out of charge during a clean. It will return, it'll charge itself up, and then it will continue to finish the job. Do not disturb mode is slightly more useful than what you may first imagine. We've got it set to start at 10 PM and end at 8 AM. It just means that during that time frame, the robot won't auto empty itself and it won't start a new cleaning cycle or resume cleaning. We also have the option to set a schedule. It's pretty much just like setting an alarm on your phone. You select where you want to clean, then you select the starting time, and then which days you want to repeat it, if ever. You can obviously see the cleaning history. If you go in here, it'll probably look a bit funny after we've done all of our little tests. In the past, you'll see that you can got nice straight lines right down the middle, and it goes right around the edge of the room first and essentially just colors in the rest of the area. So you can see where it's been, and it knows if it's missed any spots, so it shouldn't miss them ever, really. There are a whole heap of other settings, but I think I've covered all of the most useful ones, and overall it's pretty intuitive and fully functioning. Overall, this robot is very similar to the L10 Pro, but with an auto empty station. So once again, in its price range, it is about as good of a robot vacuum as you'll find. If you're interested in the mopping, you may want to spend a little bit more and get something with vibrating or oscillating mop. However, if vacuuming is what you're looking for, in its price range, this is possibly the best option on the market. It can cope with large multi-level homes because you can save multiple floor plans, and it's particularly good for people with pets or long hair. If you're in New Zealand, we've set up a place in Auckland where you can come in and do all of these tests so you can see for yourself how the robots perform in a real life scenario. If you're still not sure that this is the robot for you, then make sure to check out this video and see what else is also available. Otherwise, make sure to ask any questions in the comments below because we do our best to give you detailed responses. Like the video and subscribe because we're checking out the other Dreame products right now.